Facebook, see if it's live. I am actually going to, I'm going to Dallas tomorrow for NARPM, and then I go into that big event in Seattle for that PNW Big Badass Real Estate Expo. It's pretty cool. It's a cool gig. So I'm looking forward to that. So it should be
we'll be close.
Yeah, cool. Actually, yeah, because you're gonna be in Napa, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Wes, you should stop by.
Yeah, I might do it. Are you guys close to the Napa area?
It's about an hour and change. Not too far, but.
How close to Oakland?
What's that?
How close are you to Oakland?
We're in Oakland, so.
Very close.
I mean, Oakland. I fly into Oakland tomorrow.
Yeah. No, we're right there. We're 15 minutes away from the airport.
Oh,
Wes,
really?
where are you flying into?
Oakland.
You said it like 5 times.
Stop it, Steve.
All right. Okay, I'll stop. I'll be nice. All right, guys. So we are live on Facebook now. So we'll get this thing started. So everyone, welcome to the Lions Leadership Den. I'm your host, Steve Rozenberg, and my good friend Alex Osinenko is not here. He's on vacation. Hopefully his wife is spending all of his money, and he's enjoying some fishing down in, I believe it's in Cancun or Cabo, I forget. So hopefully he's having a good time. And my good friend, Wes Owens, decided to fill in and be the guy today to ask some questions. Wes has a great company, Citizen Home Solutions. I think they provide utilities to like 4 million houses or something nowadays. I don't even know what you're doing. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we have our good friend, Andy from Roofstock. So tell you a little bit about the show. Why we do it is, as entrepreneurs, all of us seem to have that challenge of, we hit that glass ceiling and you don't really know how to do it, especially in an industry that we're in. It can be kind of tough to figure these things out. And so Alex and I kind of got together and we saw this as a void, and we decided that we would start bringing on people that are, frontier, mavericks in this industry, and that they are wanting to change how things are done and bring new concepts. And I mean, both Wes and Andy have new concepts that are I would say kind of new to the industry, but definitely revolutionizing it. So guys, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the invite.
Yep. So Andy, let's just kind of get into this, because you've got a great product and a great story, and I think a lot of people would love to hear exactly what it is you do. So maybe just tell everyone kind of about yourself, what you do, and we can let's go from there.
Sure. So appreciate it again, Steve and Wes, and thanks for having me on. Roofstock is an online marketplace that connects sellers of single-family rental homes with buyers that are typically nationwide and even international. So these are folks who might be priced out of their local market but want to be, have exposure in real estate, in the investing world and stuff like that. So what we do as Roofstock is we are just an online marketplace for a platform. When we are onboarding homes for sale, we do a lot of upfront work to make, our investors comfortable to purchase a home that frankly they might not ever see in person. So what we do is we do a lot of valuation work. We're reviewing leases and ledgers. We are also conducting upfront inspections with virtual tours and pictures. All this to kind of create a neat package for an investor before it ever goes live on the site. And then once it goes live on the site, we are then connecting that listing to millions of registered users, again, across the nation, who then, are able to offer on these homes. We have a full transaction coordination team, et cetera. Once the home closes, we then have vetted and onboarded preferred property management partners that are local to the market in which they are buying. We don't pretend that we can, manage a home. We're sitting here in the Bay Area of California, in Houston, that a local group is really what they want to do. So what we do is we conduct a very detailed vetting process and then onboard those property management partners, connect those buyers with those groups in the local market. Once they are closed and choose a property manager to go ahead and operate that home on their behalf, they're off to the races.
So let me ask you this, and we use you, full disclosure. We you know, we have a partnership with you, works very well. But let me ask you this: when you are talking to the investor client, right? How, you know, what you're doing is a bit different than the standard, because a lot of times this investor client, and correct me if I'm wrong, but most of them, they've kind of got to go put these pieces of the puzzle together on their own. And you're kind of saying, hey, we've done this for you, but there's a lot of trust that has to be created between you and that client, right? I mean, for that to happen, how do you establish that trust? Because that's the big thing I think a lot of people need to understand in this day and age of technology. It's easier to get things done, but it's harder to establish that trust when you're looking at a computer screen.
No, it's a really good question, Steve. And one of the things that we've decided as a company, as a team here at Roofstock is, you know, you kind of think about it on a pendulum scale, right? So on one end of the spectrum, you have the old way of doing things with, you know, pencil and paper and contracts, or you can swing it all the other way and have it, you know, fully, you know, artificial intelligence and then just kind of everything's a widget, that sort of thing. What we've decided to do is say, look, we as Roofstock, we can provide all the diligence documents, to your point, Steve, we can provide all of that up front, but we can never replace the folks that are local on the ground, the local market experts. So what we then do is say, look, we can get you comfortable with this, you know, this purchase as an investment opportunity, but we can never, you know, operate it better than the local folks, the local experts. So we say, look, we can take you all the way up until, you know, the day of closing, but then once you want to operate it, you know, we can provide the pictures, the valuation reports. We have a team of former appraisers. We have a full operations staff, transaction coordinators, all this stuff. But then once you close, what we're going to do is then pass it off to a group that we know and have vetted and trust, and you know, make that referral, that you know, that introduction.
So it sounds like you've kind of basically, you've done the 80-20, you've systemized 80%, but you've humanized the last 20% so that they get that. Because look, at the end of the day, you're buying dirt, 4 walls and a roof, right? And that's not going to make you successful, right? I mean, we know many people that have bought great investment deals and run them into the ground. So that's, I guess, where the humanization comes in, where you're saying, look, based on factual data, this works, right? Now, once you own it, now to me, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road, right? That's when it actually, you've got to get that return month after month. And I'm guessing if you do that and your numbers are accurate, which I'm guessing you got to fine tune it, eventually you get the repeat buyer, right? And is the goal to get your current clients to buy more, or are you just kind of casting a wide net as big as you can go?
Well, it's a good point, Steve. I would say both. You know, we are looking to kind of, once a buyer, you know, comes into the ecosystem, so to speak, we do want to kind of, you know, build that community, that trust, and foster, making sure that they're having a good experience post-close. And one of the interesting, you know, points that we have found is when we are looking at our underwriting, our financial projections that we show on the site, we are actually outperforming that in terms of operating. You know, if we're saying it's going to be a 6% return or a 6 cap or whatever it is, we're actually slightly outperforming that, you know, on a year-to-date or inception-to-date basis. So that's one thing. The other thing is, yes, while we do want, you know, people to come back and transact again, really we one of the things that we want to do, and why we take our you know, vetting and relationships with our local property managers, that's going to be their point of contact and their experience, you know, after they close. So we want to make sure that they have a good partner, somebody who's looking out for them and really acting on their behalf. So yeah, so that 80-20 is a really good way to put it. We think that we can take you, you know, as far as possible, but then once you're operating it, once you've closed on it, it's really up to that trusted partner on the ground.
Wes, you look like you're chomping at the bit to ask him something. Go ahead, man.
No, I'm waiting on you to get to my question.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You know, what you're doing is we'll say it's different than the traditional, right?
Yeah.
So for a lot of people that want to go into a new industry, like you're kind of doing, you're taking a standard industry and you're putting a twist on it, let's say. how do you go ahead and inject that and get people to buy into the concept? Because, the property management industry I don't want to say it's an old industry, but the average property manager is 58 years old. So the average property manager they don't necessarily agree with technology, right? A lot of them believe in the handshake. I want to go shake your hand. I want to meet you in person. That's how I was raised. That's how you should be raised. And that's the mindset. So you've got to convince two people. You have to convince, it's kind of like Wes, right? What Wes does is, you've got to convince the client to trust you, but then you got to go convince the property manager that you're not going to just give them crappy doors or bad owners or this and that. So you have a two-part sale, right?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Steve. And one of the things that we do is, we're not trying to replace a property manager or replace a real estate agent or a broker. What we're trying to do is augment it, right? So we're saying, look, we can layer on this technology that we've built. We have a full team of engineers here in the Bay Area that have really built some cool tools that we can then offer to people that might be priced out of their local markets. 85% of our buyers are purchasing over 1,000 miles away from where they live. So this is truly a remote investment. So they really need those relationships with people on the ground. And to your point, we don't have any, financial or monetary relationship with our property managers. All we want to do is say, look, here are the best in class folks that are local on the ground. Here are two options, and really it's up to you, Mrs. or Mr. Investor, to go make that decision yourself. So, I wouldn't say that we're, the kind of buzzword is disrupting the industry. I don't think we're, fully swinging that pendulum, to go back to the earlier analogy. What we're doing instead is saying, look, we're here in the Bay Area. You can't walk into an open house for less than $1 million. We're saying, look, these people should be able to have that access, that opportunity to go invest in real estate and have that exposure to that asset class as part of their investment portfolio. And we're trying to make that easy.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's funny because after this, I'm going up to Seattle speaking at an event, the PNW Badass Real Estate Expo, and they're going to have about 850 people there. Yeah. And my topic is what I wish I knew about investing out of state. So my whole topic is very similar to what you're talking about. It's just basically redirecting funds. When you have technology, I think the biggest challenge people have is they understand that technology is an app, and they understand technology to be able to, buy on Amazon, these other things, but they don't necessarily understand what you guys are doing of utilizing technology as a leverage tool for their investing. So it's like, you don't have to be local because a piece of property is an inanimate object. It's just giving you a return. And so it's kind of my job when I'm on stage explaining to them that it doesn't matter where the property is. It's a mathematical equation. It either creates the equation and the result that you want mathematically based on your goals. And you may not get that in the Seattle area because same as the Bay Area, same as Los Angeles, New York, you can't get those returns. And it's one of those things that you have to understand that technology, it uses both sides. It uses on the app side for all the good things, but it also uses on the, investing side. And, Wes, I have a question for you. You've got Citizen Home Solutions, and you guys have to talk to property management companies and explain to them that you can basically turn on and off utilities for them, which is a huge time suck. And you take care of that challenge for them, but it's still a technology, right? I mean, you've got to convince the property management company to use you, which seems like a no-brainer because you actually get a check. We get a check from you every quarter, which is nice, just for referring you our tenants that take a time suck on us. But so you have to convince the property management company, but then you also have to convince the tenant that it's not a scam. How do you do that?
I think in any business, I think it's just longevity, and the longer you're in the business, building your reputation management and your name and as a company, I think, because you're building trust. Every time you help a tenant or property manager, you're getting another review posted on your site. I think it just takes time to, grow that trust. I don't think it happens overnight.
Yeah, I agree. I think look, if Andy gets a client, they say one client is worth 5.7 referrals. So if he does right by one client and this guy's like, man, this thing's great. It's cash flowing. It's making me a lot of money. What's the first thing he's probably going to do when he's hanging out at a party with like-minded people? Hey, guess what I'm doing? And because they want to brag, right? Everybody wants to brag. So he's going to start bragging about what Roofstock is doing and how they helped him. And what's going to happen next? They're going to go, how do I get in on that action? Same thing with you with the, Wes, with you and the property management company. You help one property management. We show a check that we got, I don't know, $3,000 or whatever it is in the quarter. Everyone else says, how do I get that check? I want that money.
Right.
Same thing, right? That's establishing the trust, right? I mean, do you guys have Andy, I'll ask you this. Do you guys have a system for establishing that trust, or is it just kind of by the products that you sell, or is there a specific targeted way to do that?
It's a really good question. So one of the things that we always do is say, before we want to bring on a property management partner and really start offering them referrals from our buyers, is we need to make sure that, it's a really a four-prong process. So we, do our research. We look up Better Business, Bureau reviews. We look at Yelp. We look at Google. We want to see if they're, affiliated with professional organizations like NARPM or other, avenues.
Yep.
We then do a phone interview with them. We have kind of a talk track that, people on my team would then go and kind of, do that initial phone screen. So we do that for, let's say we're opening a new market. We're active in Houston, obviously, but let's say we're going to Houston. We'll do that that process with 12 to 15 groups. We then narrow it down from there. We then, are asking for a pretty comprehensive questionnaire. We want to take a look at a copy of their property management agreement, sample lease, tenant screening guidelines, all that stuff that happens before, somebody, we ever make that referral. The fourth piece is that myself or somebody on my team will go out and actually physically visit the group on the ground, making sure that they have the appropriate, team in place. The joke I always use is it's, not somebody, in their, parents' basement running a property management company. But, jokes aside, it's an important kind of box that we need to check. And so all that happens before we ever offer a property management, as a referral to our clients. And so
at the end of the day, if they mess up, you're going to get the call, right? I mean, you're going to get the call to say, hey, this is not what you told me. I don't care if you're using Empire. I don't care who you're using. This is not what I was sold. I was sold passive income with this return. Now you got to play referee maybe, or I don't know how you handle that. But, again, you're trying to limit your problems. And I can tell you from what you said is exactly what happened. I mean, it was a pretty long, intense vetting process when we first engaged and started talking. I think I started talking to you about 9 months prior in Dallas originally, and then we, played phone tag and all that. Now, do you have the similar process for the buyers? Do you do something like that to make sure you have accredited or people like that are legit, ready to go, but also educated in that world?
So we've actually, it's really, again, a good point, Steve. We've actually made a concerted effort to put out as much educational material as possible around, the risks and also rewards for passive, out of state remote investing. So we constantly are trying to educate our buyers. Here's, what to expect. For example, you should expect there should be some repairs and maintenance. It's just a fact of, owning an investment home. And so we do that all up front as well. And we have other partners, obviously property management is kind of, what I oversee in my world, but we have lenders, we have insurers, we have, repair and maintenance companies. We have all these people that we can then, refer, but we don't ever do that until we trust them ourselves.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. Wes, do you have a similar kind of process on your side with your company? Because what you guys both do is very similar, I think, in regards to the referral model.
Yeah, I'm actually taking notes right now, but I think it's great that any company vet your clients, no matter what you're doing, before you do business with them. And I'm a young entrepreneur. We've only been in business for 3 years. I'm learning all this stuff. And so I just made a note here to maybe start asking our PMs that we're doing business with and qualify them, before we do business with them, to make sure that it's a good fit.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is get a contract, even if it's 100 properties. If they don't have the back end, all you're doing is you're just tacking hours onto your time. Andy, one thing I can tell you, another company I was talking with this past week, not exactly what you do, kind of similar, more on the software side, but they were talking about really trying to double down after we talked about doing more of an education model to really get, the more you can educate on the front end of this thing to really educate these owners. Kind of what you're doing is, in my opinion, is you're creating good owners, and you're creating owners that understand that, like you said, there's going to be costs. And I always tell people, listen, if you were to go of a profiles of a disc profile, that standard investor is a C, which means they are very logical and data driven, right? They buy an investment property for X, they're going to rent it out for Y, and Z is going to be the end result. And it's a mathematical equation. And from my experience in dealing with investors and trying to educate them, they like real estate because it's logical and it's linear and it makes sense. But what I have to explain to investors, and I spend a lot of time talking to them, is explain to them, listen, you have two variables that you cannot control. The one variable is a tenant. Now, you can do the best you can. You can screen them. You can vet them. I mean, we have a 1% eviction rate at Empire. We do a pretty good job of not taking a problem person. But I tell the owners, someone is going to be in that 1 percentile. They're going to get downsized. They're going to get divorced. They're going to get, deployed. There's going to be things that happen that are not going to make it a standard equation. And the other variable is the property. Now, I don't care if you get it inspected, appraised, it doesn't matter. Once someone's living in the property, flipping switches, turning things on, turning things off, slamming doors, things are going to break. And that's the two things I tell investors, is that you have to be okay with not being able to control those two variables. Because as we know, engineers and other people that buy real estate, they want to control everything to get the same outcome, and they can't. But I've noticed that once I have that initial conversation with them, and for them to remember, listen, this is just the sandbox you're playing in, if you will. And it's okay to not be able to control the variables, because you're looking for 30 years down the road when this thing has, doubled and doubled in appreciation. And that's where your payoff is. It's not the daily cash flow. That's nothing, or the monthly. It's what are you doing down the road? So do you educate them that much, or do you just kind of say, here's some documents, some pamphlets, let's go?
No, we do educate them that much, and try to go as far as possible. One of the things that you mentioned there, which I thought was interesting, was the piece about the tenants, right? You can have the best intentions, the best screening process, the best vetting of tenants, but things can happen. Life happens, right? So there are issues that will arise, and that's one of the reasons why we lean so heavily on making that recommendation to local professional best-in-class property managers, is that you guys are trained to handle that stuff, right? And about again, just continuing on about the tenants, one of the things that we found, so my background is in the institutional single-family rental world. I worked with a group that was now rolled up. It's called Waypoint Homes, and now it's rolled up into Invitation Homes, one of the largest institutionally managed single-family landlords. But one of the things that we had found out was it was very difficult to sell a property or to purchase a property with a tenant in place, for all the reasons that we're talking about. And that was really one of the theses, around where Roofstock was started. We're saying, look, you can keep that tenant in place. You can limit your closing costs. You can limit tenant disruption. You can limit seller disruption, all that stuff. But what we want to do is make sure that that tenant is current, the lease is in place, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's, it's a great, it's obviously the road to wealth, right? And everybody, when you talk to people about property management or owning real estate, real estate I personally own and stuff, everybody wants to get on that Ferris wheel. They don't know, they want to ride, but they don't know how to get on. And so, what you guys do is great, because you guys provide that kind of on-ramp to get them on and to get them in the game without, and I tell people, investing is not a singular sport. It's a team sport. You have to have the team, and you've got to understand that the leverage of even, people like Wes and other people, that's part of your team to make you successful. And as long as everybody has the same goals and same objectives, that's great. Let me ask you this. Based on what you've seen and where you were with your prior company and what you're doing now, where do you see all this going? Where do you see the real estate going? Because it seems like there's a lot of big players kind of starting to kind of put their scopes and focus on this industry.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting time. So, we're seeing some consolidation in the larger institutional, single family operators and owners. But even with that, so the single family rental space is 16 and a half, 17 million home space, where the largest players only own and operate about 300,000 homes, which is like 2%. I don't have my calculator in front of me, but something like that, right? And so it's really still a fragmented space, and it's really still dominated by, we call them retail investors, but you might call them mom and pops or whatever it is. So what we're trying to do is offer those retail clients some institutional tools, in terms of our underwriting and in terms of our projections and things like that, to really kind of add some professionalism and some sophistication around the industry. And I really think that you're going to see a lot of that going forward. I don't see, the large institutional, the private equity funds and things like that. I don't see them getting, market share above, call it 5-7%. Maybe it happens. I don't know, but not anytime soon. It's still going to be a largely fragmented space. And I think that, like you were saying, Steve, those people are going to rely on a team that have, aligned incentives with those owners.
So what is the target when you have your client, let's just say your perfect client, how many properties does that person own in your vision?
Well, it really depends on that particular investor's goals, right? So, on average, I can tell you that Roofstock clients buy between 3 and 4 homes. It's that's a factor of their investment goals, their investment timeline and horizon, and things like that. But it's a tough question. It depends, I guess, is the answer. But these are folks that if they like you were saying earlier, if they have a good experience, if they are able to operate, with a trusted local property manager, they kind of dip their toe in the water and then, are ready to dive in after it.
Yeah. And the reason I ask that is that those numbers agree. I agree with that. The national average is 3 to 5 properties, and our clients, we're at 2.3. So we know that we have a slight messaging problem of getting our current owners to buy more properties. And so that to us, again, knowing your numbers and knowing if we didn't know what the number should be between 3 to 5, we would think, 2.3, maybe we're good, maybe we're not good. We wouldn't know. But now we know, okay, we have a deficit, and obviously the acquisition cost keeps going down when you keep getting that client to repurchase. So what do you guys do now to drive business to your company? How are you guys, and I don't need trade secrets or anything, but what are you doing to drive that away from other people to you guys to funnel them to say, have you thought of out of state, out of country, out of area investments?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We try to make it as easy as possible. That's the quick and easy answer, right? We try to make it seamless. You can go on to roofstock.com and make an offer, right now. And we have a full team, a full support staff ready to, set up and help you with that, investment decision. So I think that's number one, is making it easy. But number two is making sure that they have a good experience post-close, right? So like you were saying, the best customer acquisition, policy or, program that you can, implement is word of mouth. And so when people have good experiences with Roofstock, they'll tell their friends will tell their friends, et cetera. And it starts to snowball from there. So really just kind of, trusting and relying on that word of mouth is very important. we also do, we have a large marketing team that, we're out there putting out those educational materials, those blog posts, things like that, that are, kind of trying to create buzz and, interest in the remote single family investing space. We feel like it's been a little bit disregarded, as we were talking about earlier. It's starting to get some more press and some more publicity around it, but it's still not as, prominent as buying homes to live in or multifamily or things like that. So we're creating that and generating that buzz around it.
Like, do you get a lot of people that flipping, right? That's the big word. That's the sexy, strategy. It's funny. A lot of times I talk to people and they'll say, "Oh, my goal is to be a flipper." I'm like, that's not a goal. That's a strategy. Owning property is not a goal. That's a strategy. What that gives you is the goal. And so a lot of times I feel like people need education on definitions and learning what they're doing as far as in their industry. But yeah, I think a lot of people, I see, like you said, I see a lot of bigger people, bigger eyeballs, let's say, coming together, trying to, bring companies, roll some companies up together, doing some other things. But it almost seems to me like it's, especially property management in general. And again, I've only been in property management 6-7 years. I mean, I'm from the airline industry, so I'm not an expert in this at all. But it seems like it's almost like it's in its adolescent age. Like you've got Wes's company who's doing something that no one's ever really thought of, right? And it's because it's such an adolescence. It's like a teenager still. Do you get that vibe? And Wes, do you?
No, I did have a question though for Andy. You're talking about your marketing team. They're obviously building the funnel through Facebook, advertising, whatever. Can you talk a little bit about the process, if you know it, kind of what they do to cultivate and kind of, qualify your funnel?
Yeah. So in terms of cultivating, we do a lot of, outreach in terms of, we do the Facebook ads and Google words and all that. I mean, that's kind of, expected. What we also do though, is we try to think outside the box, right? So we have what we call a Roofstock series. It's kind of modeled after TED Talks, but, where a different member of the team will speak to a different aspect of the kind of life cycle of a single family investment home. That has generated a lot of publicity and a lot of, good interactions and qualified people who, if you're going to sign up and listen to, for example, me talk for an hour, you want to be in the industry, right? So, so that's one. We've actually, one of the things that we try to do is say, look, you don't need to actually physically ever see a home in person because we've done all this upfront vetting. We found that doesn't work for everyone. So we actually now have started doing bus tours in our local markets. So we've done, I think 4 or 5 now. We've done one in Atlanta, Indianapolis. We have one upcoming in Birmingham, end of this month. So things like that. So when people really want to actually get boots on the ground, we'll do it, the old school way and kind of actually go, pound some pavement and show people homes and the local markets. So when you're talking about it in terms of a funnel, we cast a very, very wide net, and then we have a very strong team of sales guys and marketing team and all that in terms of then taking them down through, qualifying them and registering on the site and then understanding their investment needs and kind of profile and taking it from there.
Steve, I have another question real quick. As your co-host.
I didn't give you permission for 2, man.
I raised my hand. Come on.
All right, I'll give you 2.
So, as we're talking, obviously, Andy, your company is a pretty big company. I'm sitting here, I'm looking at it. Steve, they have 11 leadership, 11 people on the leadership team and 6 on their board of directors. How many employees do you guys have as a company?
Sure. So we have in Oakland, where I'm based, we have 95 employees. I would say half of that is literally the engineering and product design team. That is really provides the engine and provides those tools that we've been talking about that then we can offer to our clients. So that's about 95 here in Oakland. We also have a team in Dallas of about 50 or so. So total, what is that? 140 or so.
Right.
So yeah, so we just got started with the Roofstock idea in 2015. So we're a relatively new company. But that said, myself and Gary Beasley, who's one of our co-founders and CEO, I worked with him. He was the CEO at Starwood Waypoint Homes when we went public. So long experience in the industry, even though Roofstock is relatively new. But we've seen rapid growth, a lot of adoption in terms of our buyers, and the trajectory and kind of where we're headed is really good.
What kind of
part? I was gonna say, I got one more part to this question, Steve. Hold on. So you have a very interesting person on your leadership team, and I'm speaking from this because Steve and I talk about this all the time. And Steve, I don't know if you saw this or not, but they have a VP of people. Okay, that's one of the positions. I'm gonna read you the definition real quick, and then I'm gonna ask a couple questions. The VP of People Strategy owns the important role of developing leaders, anticipating growth, and training needs for enabling the organization to reach maximum organizational health. I mean, if we could all afford one of those, I think we would be Fortune 500, right? Eventually. But my question is for you, just to kind of, entrepreneurs, myself, Steve, we all struggle with this. I think to a certain degree, even starting a business. I just want to know two things about that position and what your experience is. How does that position help your company grow? And then secondly, how is that position taking your company culture and vision to the next level? Because obviously you're doing something right with 140 employees.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. Culture is key, right? It's, I wouldn't, be here. I wouldn't be enjoying my time if it wasn't for the people that I'm surrounded with every day and the team I get to work with. That I'm truly honored to work with every day. And that might sound like, fluff or whatever it is, but it's really true. Gary and Nav, who's our VP of People, and the leadership team here has really fostered an environment where there are no bad questions. Everybody has a seat at the table. It's really, truly, things that people might say, but really we try to live it here, and it attracts. The phrase I always use is good people find good people, right? And so, having that kind of culture and that, those policies and the ways around it, it really just helps. It makes people excited to come to work and all that. So, one of the things, kind of our number one policy when we're looking at adding to the team is we have a no jerks policy. You have to be, ready and willing to roll up your sleeves, but you also have to be willing to work in a team environment and understand that everybody's opinions, even if they might differ from yours, are worth just as much as Gary Beasley, who's our CEO, down to the newest guy on the team. And it really matters, and it really helps us find good people.
Thank you for sharing that. Go ahead, Steve.
If somebody doesn't align with with the core values and the culture, do you free up their future? Needless to say.
Or question is what's do you guys use some kind of culture or index, obviously, to find your talent or hire them before they even go through, an interview?
Yeah, we do a lot of upfront work in terms of making sure that we think it's a potential fit. We don't ask for a test or an index or anything like that per se, but what we do is after that upfront screening, when we bring them in, we make sure they meet with 6, 7, 10 people, right? So we want to make sure that we get a very cross-functional representative sample of people who they might be interacting with, because again, we're a very flat organization. When every department is still working with everyone. Yes, we have grown. When I joined in 2015, we were a company of 20 people. And obviously we've grown significantly since then, but it still feels like a very small company. So we need to make sure that a potential candidate, a potential team member is meeting with as many cross-functional leaders as possible.
How do you keep that tight-knit mentality as you grow? Because as you grow, you're removing yourself, I'm sure, further and further from the center, or everyone is, as you get more people underneath you. How do you make sure that bottom person is getting the same cultural buy-in when you're not it's not you actually talking to them necessarily directly anymore.
Yeah, it's not easy. You have to make a concerted effort to involve everybody on your team. And what we do is, so we have kind of brown bag lunches every week. On Thursdays, everybody comes and sits in what we call our agora. It's kind of just kind of an open area in our office, and a different team member will present, a Q&A, for 30 minutes every week, and just say, hey, here's what I'm working on. Here's what my team is working on. Here's our focus. Here are our challenges, and here's how we all can help. And just really, it enables, to Steve, to your point, it enables that even though it's a larger team, it enables people to still feel like they are involved and know what's going on cross-functionally, right? And it's really important. We do make a concerted effort to make sure that we keep that small, small company, small team feel, even though that, we're now 140 people or so.
It's interesting. When I first got hired by one of the airlines when I was younger, you go through this whole interview process, and you go through the simulator training, and you go through all that. And if you pass the simulator training, basically proving that you can fly, then you go in front of a board. And what's interesting is when you go in front of the board, you're basically sitting in a basically half circle around you. It's, big company. And, you got an HR person, and then you got the management, and then you got the pilots. And when I was done and I ended up getting the job, and I was talking to one of the guys after, I said, what's the goal of doing this? And he said, well, HR has their goal. Obviously, they've got to be there to check the boxes. But he said, honestly, everyone else, they just want to know if they can fly with you on a 4-day trip and you not drive them effing crazy, and that you're a normal person. He goes, that's really all we're trying to do is this someone that's just way out there? And can they buy into what the company's doing and buy into that culture? And he goes, that's really what we're trying to figure out, is who you are as a person. Because he says, we know you can fly. You got to this level, so you're right. A pilot. But he said, it's more of, are you going to fit in with what we are as a company? And I always thought that was interesting, the way they did that.
Yeah, no, and I would, kind of agree with that approach. Everybody who comes into the office or meets with somebody in person has the, on paper skills, the talents and the experience and the skill sets that we're looking for. It's really, it goes back to that no jerks policy. Are you going to be a good team member? Are you going to fit in culturally and all that stuff? And, we're lucky enough, we've been, voted, one of the 100 best workplaces for 3 years running now, and all that stuff. So it really speaks to the culture that we fostered, and it really leads to good results and
sure.
Just a good environment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, I don't want to take up much more of your time. Wes, you have anything else you want to grill him on?
No, I didn't raise my hand, so I'm good.
All right, good. All right. Well, Andy, hey man, I really, really appreciate you taking the time. I know your time is valuable. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, where would they find you? Online, on Facebook, all that kind of, well, you're not on Facebook, but online and website and stuff.
Sure. I would encourage everybody, if you want to learn more about Roofstock, go to roofstock.com, or you can email me directly if you have any specific questions, Andy, ANDY @roofstock.com.
All right. And Wes, you want to give a little bit about your company? I know a lot of people know who you are, but maybe you can talk a little bit more about what you do and kind of the targets.
Sure. Thank you for letting me co-host today. I appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully Alex is watching and he's proud. But Citizen Home Solutions, we're a free utility concierge service, primarily in the single family property management realm. We help tenants set up their utilities and services for their new home. So what we try to do is we try to create a good experience that the property management company is offering to their tenant. So we basically can help handle their utilities and services within one phone call. We help make sure satellite dishes don't get installed on the roofs of the house. We cut down on phone calls going to the property management companies about utilities, because even though they've told them a million times, they're still going to call, text, or email and ask questions about it. Just a time suck for the property management company. And overall, we're just trying to provide a white gloves experience for the tenant, because moving sucks. And, it's probably the worst, second most stressful thing of your life is moving and organizing all that. So we try to take a little piece of that stress off the tenant, but we've seen it reflect on the property management company as a value add service, which they get better reviews because of it. And I think you guys have gotten a few hundred reviews from us. No, I'm just kidding, from doing business with us. But again, we're a free service. It's free to implement. It's free for the tenant to use. And like Steve said earlier, we pay out a quarterly check just as our way of saying thank you for letting us help your clients.
Well, and I think what people need to realize, and whether you're in the property management business, especially if you're in the property management businesses, both of these two companies are a valuable source of leverage. There's no way I could create the software and algorithms and everything that Andy and his team has created, and we utilize them. So they're part of our team. We use them. Fantastic guys. They do basically everything he said they do. And to us, that's a form of leverage. And that's a way that we don't have to hire an employee to teach them to do these things when Roofstock is a plug and play. Same thing with Wes. I mean, Wes has literally saved us one, if not two employees for staffing purposes, just because of them taking that challenge and that time suck off of, being on the phone. I mean, that's time. So I think what people need to start realizing and learning is that, the time is everything, and saving time and having that ability to protect your time is what's most important as entrepreneurs. And I think we all need to do a better job. I do. I think everybody does, of valuing that time. And so, with that, guys, I really appreciate you being on the show. I do this for free. I do this because I really want to try to help entrepreneurs figure out other ways. These guys have great products, great services. My only request is that, you find it on iTunes, download it and share it. Just share it to someone else just so that other entrepreneurs can get it. And I think, if you go to our Facebook group, Sphere of Influence, we've got a lot of entrepreneurs on there. Feel free to join. We want people to have multiple conversations about upper level challenges that we all deal with. And I think a lot of people get a lot of enjoyment out of the podcast show that Alex and I have created and the Facebook group, Sphere of Influence. So thank you guys. I appreciate your time today. And everyone, we'll see you guys back in a week and a half with Alex. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.